This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Thank you. We're going to try different. Yeah. Please let us know if you can. Well, can hear us. Can hear us. Okay. So welcome everybody to the meeting of the Monterey Select Board. Today's date is what? October 13th. Lucky 13. Present is myself, Stephen Weiss, the chair, and
Just present.
Is John
John
Weingold
Weingold present remotely.
John Weingold is present remotely. Before we begin, well, actually, we begin the meeting. I want to add a quick statement to the beginning of this meeting. This afternoon, I was present at a meeting between the Monterey Town Administrator and the Melissa No and the Monterey Town Clerk, Terry Walker. At that time, I left with the understanding that they are going to begin a dialogue toward a path toward resolution, that they're going to try and put some of these matters behind them and work together for the betterment of the town of Monterey. Now, I want to say that it takes a great deal of courage to do so. And while there's not that many people in the audience, I'd like to give them a round of applause for making the attempt. So with that, and by the way, while they're both here, so I'm not speaking. I don't want to speak for both of them. Did everybody leave with that same understanding?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Okay, so both Terry and Melissa said yes. I don't know if the owl caught you over there. So again, thank you very much. And let's see if we can get everything resolved. And by the way, this resolution is also going to hopefully continue with Sean Tryon and Tim Fitzpatrick and everybody else in this spider's web. So I think we're going to try to resolve everything we can and work together. So again, thank you. All right, so let's move on.
I'm gonna make a motion to put new business number 5, recommendation of an independent investigator by Brian Mazer first. Move it to first on the agenda, followed by number 8, reserve fund transfer request, and number 9, special town meeting warrant article. That's my motion.
So look, from the very beginning, I've had no problem. That's nobody in the audience. I've got no problem putting town new business in the front of the meeting. So yeah, I'll second that motion.
Would the chair take note that Mr. Weingold has left the meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did he? Well, okay. What time was that? 6:04. That's all right. Very good. So, so I guess it's just the two of us, Justin. Yeah, we can certainly talk about it. I mean, since I say yes, and you say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you like to talk about the recommendation for the independent investigator?
Yeah, I vote yes on that motion to move the agenda items around.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Moved. So we received 5 investigators, 2 who work together. I thought it would be prudent to interview at least 3 of them. Corinne's hourly rate seems prohibitively expensive for our purpose. So I figured, I would motion, to, interview Paul and Ed, Alan Gould and Mike Pavoni, next week, maybe Tuesday morning or Thursday morning.
So, okay. So my,
Justin,
my,
it's hard to hear you.
Alright, well, I'll try to speak louder. I was hoping we got a list of investigators.
I cannot understand Justin speak.
I'm gonna put my earbuds in.
Somebody's speaking in the background. Hold on for a second. Hold on.
That's great.
Still hear somebody talking in the background.
Yeah, I don't see the person that's coming up.
You don't see there's
It's
little.
Marshall Messer, but he's not coming up on the screen.
Hold on for a second.
I got him.
Okay. Okay, good. Sorry about that, everybody. We'll try to speak up a little bit louder. We're still working this stuff out and it's hard with masks also. So I just announced. So it seems that the path and the clerk and the town administrator are trying to work it out. What I would suggest.
So, there's a number of allegations of misconduct and they're not centralized. And we have twice voted, Steve, to investigate them and hire an independent investigator to investigate the allegations of misconduct.
So
And they do not all stem from one person or two people, and they're not all about one or two people. And we have a list of investigators, and I think it would be prudent to interview them.
So I would like to give a week for the town administrator and the town clerk to see if they can work on their disagreements. And I've got a feeling that it may also help to lessen any of the disagreements that also are out there between other individuals. I think that a lot of these accusations that are flying back and forth are because of the toxic atmosphere that was created over an initial misunderstanding. And quite frankly, I don't think it makes sense to waste an investigator's time or the town's time or money. They're probably going to charge, but even if they don't, if we can try, if we're on a path toward resolution between the people that work here, what I'm saying is that let's give them a week.
You're severely misrepresenting the situation, Steve.
No, I'm not.
It's Harry back in here, because I think if I left the meeting today, understanding it correctly, I think several allegations are going to be withdrawn.
Yep. I believe so too. And why not give it a chance? If you have the opportunity to, and by the way,
Because
anybody can do
because
investigation
nothing,
at any
things
time.
around town hall are no longer going to be kicked down the road or swept under the rug.
Nothing's being swept under the rug. There's actual progress that just occurred today, toward a peaceful resolution that is going to, that may, and it may not happen, but there's some real concrete efforts. There was a lot of good work that was done between the town administrator and the town clerk toward resolution. I would want that to see how that's going to play out before we start throwing investigators into the mix. There's no, if we need them, we'll hire them. But this work actually, this meeting actually happened today, and that's the reason why I'm saying that let's give it a week, and if they're able to work out a resolution, and if other parties are able to work out resolutions, which I believe they're going to, because of this, then we can move forward without investigating. If not, hey, we can start interviewing investigators. I get no problem with that.
Well, I'm still gonna make my motion to interview investigators because we need accountability. You're misrepresenting the real allegations of misconduct that the board has received. You're kicking the can down the road and you're sweeping them under the rug. And if you're not gonna solve a toxic environment by, misrepresenting it and saying that everything's all good now. I mean, you're really misrepresenting what the board has received in terms of,
So we just had two, you can't verify that we just had two parties in the same room in front of the board and the public that said, we're working on this path to resolution. It either happened or didn't happen.
I'm just saying there's a lot more to the picture. You're painting a very small part of the picture.
I'm beginning with the crux of how we've gone down this path, and I believe that if we can find that way to resolve it, then we can avoid having. And again, if we cannot, let's bring in. I'm actually the first person that actually made the recommendation for professional investigators, as you may recall. But if parties are saying that I'm willing to sit back and see if we can resolve it ourselves, then that's what we do, and that's considered the Monterey way. We're a small town. We can resolve. We can resolve. We do have the ability to resolve conflicts on our own, if possible. If we can't, then we can bring in outside people. I've got no problem with that. But if there's a kernel of hope that we can do that, we should explore it. And now you have two people that said they're willing to explore it, and I'm telling you, that's a big step for this town.
Also, if you've read what I've written, you might find the path that you claim that we're going down, especially to consider some thought. I mean, but I didn't get a second on the motion, so the next item is reserve fund transfer request. Steve,
Yeah.
is the same.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Peter Marquette, I just wanted to ask Justin what you think might be lost if we simply give this an opportunity to give the two parties, understand it, an opportunity to work out their differences together with the possibility of a more formal investigation if that doesn't work. I don't understand what you think might be lost if we follow that process.
So the two parties most involved, I don't think is accurate to all of the information that the board has, which is not your fault. It's, we're bound to confidentiality on that issue, but there's a number of parties with, very different involvements, and to represent it as just an issue between two people is far from the truth. And so just because maybe some of the parties have mediated, I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but it's not necessarily what's going to be the best way to move us forward.
But my question is, by giving it a chance to resolve by this process, as opposed to getting a professional and right away, when there's a possibility that it might be resolved, not just between the two parties, but maybe a spirit of working together to resolution will be infectious, and other people who have complaints will not have them over a period of time. The town will have not spent money in a more expensive and pointed effort to resolve this. I don't understand what is lost by giving this more organic way of resolving the issue a chance to work.
So without breaking confidentiality, I can also speak to how issues are resolved. Sometimes is done in a very healthy way, and sometimes issues are resolved, and that's not necessarily a sign that everything has been dealt with appropriately, and that's all I can really speak to that, but, I think it would be useful for the town hall, the town employees, the townspeople, at some point to investigate some allegations of misconduct. Like you said, some differences can be worked through, but also, it's about an environment that we're creating of accountability and of dealing with issues, with positive steps forward. I can't, with the barrier of confidentiality, it's hard to fully explain to you where I'm coming from, seeking an investigation, and not just letting all the differences be resolved. But I'll just say that sometimes resolutions are healthy and sometimes they're not. There can be reasons that they would not be, and they might still want to be investigated.
I would think that any parties who continue to have grievances could make them known at any point.
Well, they've been made known, and some may be retracted or withdrawn, but the ones that are not retracted or withdrawn, or even, sometimes things are retracted or withdrawn for not good reasons, which is something to be investigated in itself, I believe. I'm trying to get, I guess, just to the root of the issue. I'm not trying to put an undue tax burden on anyone or dwell on old issues between people, but to get to the root of why what happened and how to move forward. I don't know if that answers your question sufficiently, but, I would like to get to the root of some of these problems.
So the root of these problems, and these problems have occurred in this town hall for the last 5 years, and have occurred way before my time. The root of the problems is, and in any organization, whether it's a business or government, when you're all in a room together, is that we're all human beings. We don't always get along. People say things, people do things, sometimes they're not right for whatever reasons. Everybody's got their own different types of motivations. Everybody comes at problems and in a different way. There are strong personalities, there are personalities that don't want to get involved. Everybody's got a different people, and when you put people together, generally, they'll have problems. Now, how do you, the main thing is, how do you get past that? Do you let it blow up? Do you let it build up to a point where it actually blows up and takes everything with it? But the actual, no investigator is going to be able to pinpoint an actual root cause of this myriad of disagreements and problems. And even if they could, the next day, you could have a whole different list of problems and issues. The thing is that when people I've seen in this town hall, people fight, people make up. People, one day they're not talking to each other, the next day they're working with each other. I think the one thing that we do have, that everybody in this building does have in common, is that they're uniquely dedicated to their job. And sometimes that also promotes conflicts, because you've got two people that are trying to get the same thing done, but they're doing it in a different way. And if they're that dedicated, they're going to clash. So I personally going to devote any bit of energy that I have during this week to see if all these various problems can get
Swept under the rug.
can get worked out by people. You know what? If you and I have a disagreement, okay, and no matter what people say to you, and later on I say, you know what? Let's bury the hatchet. Let's move on from now forward. I'm not interested in anything that we said to each other from the previous day. I mean, obviously, we come into select board together, and there's always been heated exchanges. We don't always agree with each other, and that's fine. That's cool, because what we should do, what all boards should do, is you start from today.
4 1 3 7 1 7 0 7 7 5 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Barbara, I was calling you and connecting you, but you're not picking up, so it's just going into your voice.
All right, anyway, so look, I understand what you're saying, Justin. I'm just saying, let's see how far we can get in a week. And if we can't, if there's some things that are still out there, I'm open to the idea of investigations. Yes, Maggie.
Maggie Birkin. I would just like the tone of the meeting to continue in a reasonable and an open-hearted way, and using cliches again and again is inflammatory to the moment. If we can talk straight, avoid metaphors, and we're all trying our best, I think, and if we could just keep the emotionality out of it, I would really appreciate that, because I'm not accustomed to attending select board meetings, but I'm very concerned with the name calling our other select board member who isn't even present. All he said at the last meeting was, hey, is this a John Weingold bashing session? That's inflammatory. It wasn't helpful. And I never learned any more about what that person thought, except for the emotionality. So Justin, you're doing a great job, but please keep yourself sober and straight here, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess maybe I simplified it and left too much to metaphor. But my
You're doing
point,
great. Just
my
keep
point
it
being,
calm.
Steve, I understand sometimes there's day-to-day disagreements and miscommunications. And sometimes there's larger issues than that. And if we fail to fully address them and the systemic, or maybe not systemic, but the problems that we're having, I mean, we're out because of this. I think in some ways, multiple people have resigned. So the problems, we're not free of consequence. And so I want, to the extent possible, to figure out, and I know humans are complicated and it's not necessarily like a scientific study that's gonna yield an exact quantitative result, but I want, to the extent possible, to
Do you have it?
I hear a lot of noise.
forward, and I think you're right, some problems are smaller, and I think some of the issues that have been raised to the select board are not necessarily at that smaller level, and they raise more concern, and probably deserve an investigation to get to the root cause.
So can I try to see if I can maybe get some of those resignations? I don't know if it'll be successful or not, but if the atmosphere is better, maybe some of those some of those resignations won't. Because
You
they
mean
may-
like a retraction of the
It's not a
complaint?
retraction. It's just like, listen, sometimes people do things that are impulsive. How many here have quit a job? Okay, so sometimes we do it and we say, that's it, I'm done with it, I'm out of here. And then later on, you're like, you know what, I probably could have stayed. So maybe some of these are not resolute. Maybe they are. But wouldn't it make sense for the town to see if we can explore that? And
Can I say one more little thing?
Sure.
Maggie Barkin, again, I was wondering if some of the problems are managed by the individuals, it means that the investigators won't have so many different conflicts to unravel, and it won't cost the town as much, so that the investigators can concentrate on the serious issues.
Mm-hmm.
So this extra week to sort of sort out what's superficial, what's just was the heat of the moment, and what cannot be swept under the rug, to use a phrase. So the week of I can't recognize somebody as.
No, I was, when you're done, and we have two
Yeah.
people on here that want to speak.
Okay, all right, let's
I
do that, and then,
I think you're gonna find,
should-
Justin, given the week, that there are outside factors that played a role in manipulating this whole situation, which led to multiple follow-up complaints that would have never happened. And I think once Terry and I have a chance to talk, and those parties are named that have been manipulating the situation, you'll feel better about it not going to an investigation.
I understand, I also understand that, not to use too many cliches, Maggie, but two wrongs don't make a right,
That's a
and,
good one.
and, I just, yeah, we voted twice for an independent investigation.
Janet Jensen has her hand up.
okay, Janet,
I know there was some discussion, I haven't followed it all, about HR person, because, I mean, it seems like what we need an investigator is a HR person and a mediator.
so,
I'm sorry, could
so
you?
yeah, I can hear you breaking up a little bit in between words. But I got the
So-
gist of it.
Mediator and an HR person, I feel like we need more than an investigator.
So the HR person, this 5-town group that is trying to find an HR person has already been through 2 rounds looking for people. I'm actually, Melissa's on that committee. Melissa, are they doing a 3rd round, or what's happening with that?
Unfortunately, we were doing the 3rd round. The candidate that we made an offer to announced that she is pregnant and she is unable to find childcare in Berkshire County and can't take the job. So we are back to square one with putting the job back out there.
Okay, so I agree that we need an HR person. Badly, I think it's this shared services approach will get one faster than if the town tried to hire their own HR person. As far as a mediator is concerned, I don't think that's a bad idea either. Again, let's see if this is a snowball. In my opinion, a lot of toxicity was like a snowball rolling down the hill. Maybe if you have something that's positive, it can be like a snowball rolling down the hill. So that would be the goal. So, and I'll give it a try. Okay.
Steve Moore has.
See, there's a
Steve
hand
Moore?
up on the screen.
All right, I'm sorry. You can't.
Go ahead, Steve Moore.
Steve Moore.
I'd like Justin to talk a little bit more about what is involved with interviewing an investigator, which is not the same as hiring them to actually conduct an investigation. It seems preparatory to that, so that if things don't get worked out, then you have an opportunity. You'll have somebody in mind ready to go. So I'd like to hear from Justin what steps are involved with interviewing an investigator.
Yeah, I think, Steve, all I was gonna do is invite them to an open select board meeting, like how we interviewed our town council candidate. And then come up with some good questions for them, make sure that they didn't have any conflicts, like they weren't involved with anyone who was going to be involved in the investigation. See what their hourly rate is, although we already have that for some, if not all of them. And discuss with them what the process would look like. I agree with you, Steve. I think it would be a prudent option. We wouldn't have to pay to interview them. And I think it would be prudent to know what options are available. On one hand, a lot of differences can be resolved, but there have been consequences, and I think a couple, or at least one person who resigned said that this whole situation caused them to resign, and so I do think it's important not to get to the root of some of these allegations. I really do think it's important. I think we should leave the investigation option open for sure. I think it would be prudent, and we wouldn't have to hire anyone, and we could interview and just see what's available, and then if we wanted to hire people, we could do so at that time. But my motion got no second, Steve, so.
So basically, you would like to go through the process of finding who we can call in if things don't get resolved otherwise.
Yes, I think so. There's a lot there, yeah.
I think a simple yes.
Yes, I think it would be, I still think it would be useful. Even if not this situation, I know we have other situations going on and, anything for the future, and it wouldn't cost anything to invite them for an interview. But that's just my point of view.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else holding their hand up? Nope. We move on. Okay, what's the next thing on the agenda? Reserve fund transfer request?
Reserve fund transfer request. So I was going to ask the select board to request $10,000 from the reserve fund to transfer to the select board expenses account to potentially pay for an independent investigator. But that's my motion. I motion to request that. I don't have the form.
Yeah, I don't have the form.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that we have got, if we do, or if we are in a position of hiring an investigator at the time, then we can actually do that transfer at that time. So I don't understand. So I guess I don't think right now there's a need to move money into a different line if you're not sure you're going to be using it.
Okay, fair enough. I just I guess now, if we use an independent investigator, we could request.
We'll do it right away.
Reserve funds, because I think it's definitely an unexpected, use that couldn't have been predicted at town meeting.
What was the other one?
9.
Special town meeting warrant articles.
Okay. So Melissa, you put together a copy of what's currently contemplated for special town meeting. I know a bunch of people have been writing in asking what's it all about. In my opinion, the most important part of it is, and the reason why it was scheduled initially, in part, is to provide funds for firefighters in the payment of their air packs, which we thought we were going to get with grant monies, and we applied for a grant. And at the time, we were told that, obviously, we actually, I believe we told the public that we may get the grant, we may not get the grant. And we were hopeful that we would get it, and we did not.
We got some.
Or we got some of it. I'm sorry, we got some of it. We didn't get all of it. So the amount that's left over.
It's approximately 92,000. I'm still waiting for one more quote from Sean.
Okay. So there's $92,000 bill that we're gonna have to find how to pay for it. Now, luckily, we were gonna move it from free cash.
Free cash. Yeah.
And you can only do that with a special town meeting. And obviously, I don't believe anybody feels that that's gonna be a bad idea. And free cash, as everybody knows, or as most people know, is money you've already been taxed on. So I think it's a reasonable use of free cash. Are there other items on the warrant?
There is a prior year bill from the town clerk's office There is a request to amend the bylaws to add 2 accounts for the Conservation Commission revolving funds, and there is a citizen's petition for the recall bylaw.
Okay.
And how many signatures does that citizen's petition have?
Right now it has 25. They turned it in, it only needed 10, they're getting more, I believe.
Could be mistaken, I thought a citizen's petition for a special town meeting needs either 100%, 100 signatures, or 10% of the voting population, whatever's less.
That's only if they're requesting to call a special town meeting. You already have a special town meeting plan, so.
Then you just need 10 signatures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I also had 2 warrant articles.
Yes, so you gave me 2, I'm assuming the first one is,
So I can explain them. So one was to ask for funds for an independent investigator if the finance committee was not willing to spend reserve funds. Because I thought that that would be an appropriate asking town meeting if they would be willing to fund an investigation. And then also I had put on there just money for a temporary highway employee, which I have not fully fleshed out with Sean yet. I haven't talked to Sean about it, but I thought it might be prudent, and we could always, well, I'll have further, I'll discuss with Sean. And I mean, those numbers can always be changed on the floor if needed, but given, people raised concerns last Wednesday that, with 2 out of the 5 highway department, workers having resigned, recently, and hopefully we'll find replacements and it will all work out well, but if not, a temporary highway employee. I know last year, if I'm not mistaken, we had a temporary highway employee, for some weeks, just
So-
help because we were still looking for a
Right,
fourth
but,
guy.
but the funds that are,
so I don't know if you got my response or not. Sean and I
I
have
did.
talked about this. So if we don't fill the positions, that means there'll be 2 line items that aren't being used that we can pay temporary employees out of, which is what we did last year. If they are filled, then we don't need a temporary employee because we have a full, so Sean and I don't feel that this is the
Okay,
highest
that's,
priority on the list.
that's good. I was confused. I thought that we couldn't pay out of the other lines for the other employees. And that it would need to be a temp highway employee, but if that's the case, then yeah, then I don't have any reason for that article. I
And
still
we're- yeah.
depending how the next week goes, I guess, would like the 10K for the independent investigation.
And again, if we find ourselves in a, if we've got a problem, there are ways to, there are emergency funds that we can tap if we have to.
What other options would there be?
The reserve fund.
We can do that
Yeah.
for emergency, so.
Yeah.
We need a highway employees, or even if we had all 4 of them and we had an incredibly terrible winter or something like that, we need to hire extra people, there are funds that are available.
You could hire plow drivers under the snow and ice.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, all good. I just wanted to make, there was a lot of concern last week and I wanna make sure we cover all our bases.
Well, okay, so, what, so did anybody have their hand up, is Melissa, or no?
Nope.
Is that, oh, I thought Don, it looks like Don had his hand up, he was reading the paper. Okay, what other items?
That was it
Was
for,
that it?
the ones that I moved to the front.
Okay, we're going to, I think that, is there any pressing town business that we need to
Yes.
finish up with?
Let's see.
I would love to get to Paula Hartstein's emails about Park Road as well. I don't know if you're talking about wrapping or what.
No, I'm just
I didn't
asking
get that.
Melissa if there's anything that's a regular town business, I'd be happy to talk about it. Somebody has.
Justin and Steve, I had just a few weeks ago when you were discussing the Cronk Road and the pole, I think I wasn't
Who is it? Oh, sorry, Paula. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I guess
I'm
it-
sorry. I thought you had called my name. Sorry.
Go ahead, you wanted to get.
Yeah, you wanna, okay, let's talk about that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I think, I just want to say that I think I might have misunderstood what your position had been, Steve, but in a subsequent meeting, it seemed like what I thought had been your position, maybe mediating, was incorrect. So it's moot at this point.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, so I understand that this discussion took place 6 years ago, so that was actually before my time. And I wanted to get as much information as possible on it, because obviously it seems to be, there's lots of parts to it. So I just wanted to, so I asked for the board's permission to talk to essentially all the parties involved. And so I now have a better idea of what's actually going on over there. And but I've got a feeling that it sounds like the parties and National Grid are talking. So I think that's the whole point of trying to move the discussion forward.
Okay, I really appreciate it. And Justin, I appreciate you back to me and also follow up.
My hand's up. My hand is up, Steve.
All right, we recognize you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
In light of the fact that John has left the meeting and is not going to be here to raise item 7, which is the criticism of you, Steve, I think the people who are present would very much appreciate it if Justin would tell us that he has no desire to see you replace this chair. Thank you.
I personally, Justin, you don't have to have the discussion if you don't want
Do
to.
you want me to speak to?
If you'd like to, but you don't have to.
I know it's weird to talk about a chair of a board when there's only 2 people here, but
Fine.
I think over the course of the last 5 months, this being my first experience on the select board, we've set expectations for the chair regarding scheduling of meetings, agendas, and almost always, once we've set the expectations pretty clearly, they've been met. And so when, I felt that a request to put a communication from the chair of another board commission had been left off the agenda, we made it so that all agenda items would be added to the agenda, which has worked to I think well. I would say that in terms of moderating discussions, I'm not sure if you've become overwhelmed at the number of people who are trying to comment sometimes, because it does overwhelm me. But I know that some of our recent meetings have devolved into a lot of yelling and not so much order. But I think it's important that, and like I said, I don't envy your position, but I think it's important that we keep the meetings orderly, and following agreed upon rules like Robert's Rules of Orders and the open meeting law, because without rules, we're not really a democracy. We can't have deliberate discussion. We're just yelling. And I think, like in terms of the open meeting law, the open meeting law guide, which we have, says, although a public body may consider a topic that was not listed in the meeting notice if it was not anticipated, the Attorney General strongly encourages public bodies to postpone discussion and action on topics that are controversial or may be of particular interest to the public if the topic was not listed in the meeting notice. And so I think I understand it's at the chair's discretion to discuss some some topics that were not anticipated, but I do think there's a real cost to discussing topics that are not on the meeting agenda, especially if they're controversial, because the people at the meeting, you know, they definitely feel heard, but there are people, and I've talked to people within the past week who didn't know one of, you know, what we spent a lot of time talking about and ultimately made a decision on was even going to be discussed. And so I guess my point here is more about the process than the outcome. Because I think to uphold our reasoned discussion and deliberation and majority votes, we need to have those agreed upon rules. And the reason, I guess, it got me thinking about why do we do the things that we do? Why do we post agendas 48 hours in advance? It's so that the people can know and have input if they want to have input. And so I just would like to say that, you know, I want to make sure that this board going forward, you know, is very cognizant of those rules, not to be sticklers for them, but to realize, you know, why they're there, to be you know, the transparency. And I think the rules and the order, like Robert's Rules of Order, allows and makes a good environment for deliberation and reasoned discussion, and ultimately democracy in ways that the chaos of unmoderated discussion doesn't allow for. So I do think, you know, it's important that we have, because like I said, the roles of the chair on the select board at the moment are not, there's not many. We have voted to have meetings on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. We have voted anyone can add any agenda items that they want. So those traditional roles are not there, but moderating discussion is there, setting agendas is there, and, you know, sometimes being the point person is there, so, sorry for that,
No problem. No, that's okay.
but,
Can I,
yeah.
Ellen Coburn has her hand up too.
Okay, Ellen, could you just, let me just speak
Sure.
to it and then you can, thank you, Ellen, appreciate that. So listen, there's a reason why.
Can't hear you. You can't hear.
I'm sorry, I won't leave that. So generally, there's a reason why the chair of select boards is the third term, or you know, the last year of their term, essentially. And one of the reasons, one of the most important reasons is because you take your cumulative, this job, this select board, okay, there's a lot of things there's a lot of things that I learned, okay, over the last, whatever, 5 years or 6 years, whatever it is. And you take that cumulative knowledge and then you try to do the best for everybody. You try to follow you try to follow the rules of the road, but you also want to serve the public that is involved in whatever the issue is. And it is a balancing act, and sometimes it's done well, and sometimes it's not done well. And I'm telling you, I've definitely made mistakes, and I've sat here on boards with other board members, and they've also made mistakes. But the idea is that when you become, I'm sure, maybe next year, maybe the year after, anyway, you become chair, you're gonna be able to look back on this year. This is a great experience that you've gone through. Actually, most board members haven't really gone through. So when we have 48 people on a screen and 30 people in a room that came in last time, okay. So obviously the townspeople, I felt that because obviously right now, I mean, generally most meetings we have one person, two people, we have a couple people on the screen, but we had so many people that were tuned in. Obviously, the townspeople really had something that they really wanted to discuss. And yes, at that point, I felt that it would be doing a disservice to the public if we waited if we waited and not address fractures. And it's going to happen periodically when you're on the board. Okay,
Yeah.
you may be on the board for 6, 9, 12, 15 years, okay?
I'm going for 33.
33 years? Okay, I personally wouldn't recommend it, but all right. But
That's a
that's
joke.
okay, but
Hair will look like Steve's.
yeah, you want this? Go ahead. But it is again. It's just like everything else. It's just like you know, you will try to do the best you can to really adhere to what the Attorney General presents guidelines to keep everybody out of trouble and to keep and Robert's rules so that they should be operated on. But you're also the board. You're also a policy board for a small town. And if the people in town want to talk about something and they make their presence known, then I think it's best generally to let them have their say. But again, sometimes it's a good move, sometimes it's not. And I'm right. I do agree with you that sometimes it's very challenging to keep the meeting moving. And sometimes it's especially now. Remember, when we generally the boards, we never had this COVID business, so we never had screens and owls and all sorts of crazy things to deal with. And that is plus you have a lot of people who are very passionate about certain things and make their voices heard. And yes, and sometimes they do walk over when we're talking. So I make a pledge to you, Justin, that I will try to do a better job of maintaining order in this, in these meetings, and giving everybody their say. But the public has to cooperate as well. We're going to do our best to recognize you. But if somebody's speaking, please don't talk over each other. Listen, again, I'm happy to serve the board, whether I'm the chair, I'm not the chair, it doesn't make a difference to me. It's just a title, okay? It's not a big deal, okay? You certainly don't get paid anywhere for it. The thing is this, let me, if you will, it's up to you, okay? Part of my job is to, whether you agree with me or not, is to at least impart just a little bit of my experience. You don't have to take it. You don't have to take
No,
it.
and I appreciate this discussion because, I think as a board, it's something we can all work on. It's not the sole responsibility of the chair to ensure that we follow the OML or Robert's rules or any of these. And I don't think the point is to be a stickler for the rules. I think the point is the spirit of the rules, which promote transparency and education and keeping everyone informed because they're who we serve. And I guess the other point I want to make is just that I'm very concerned, I guess, or not concerned, but I want to focus on the process, maybe more than outcome, because for me, the process of informing people, posting agendas in advance, keeping meetings orderly is what gives us democracy and what gives us, reasoned deliberation and educated voters. And losing that in exchange for, one outcome or another would be a grave mistake in my eyes. And I understand it's a balancing act, but for me, keeping that process of the spirit of those rules is very important because without them, we lose, very much democracy and reasoned deliberation. And I'm not, gonna say that I'm not gonna say, I guess, speak any more to that, just that I hope we as a board can always course correct, and if we tend too far, we can make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And I understand, it's great when people are here, they get to be heard, but there also is the real cost of the people who felt that it was kept away from them, and now most, or some people are on the Google group, and so everyone on the Google group, of course, thinks, oh, well, everyone knew because my inbox was blowing up for 2 days, but there are some people who aren't, and who legitimately didn't hear. I just wanna keep in mind, the idea, not follow open meeting law because it's the open meeting law, but why do we have the open meeting law? Why do we have Robert's rules? And I think they do have a spirit of transparency and democracy and order that allow for the best of government. So, and that's all I, you know.
It's true. I just want to make one statement, then we'll let Ellen, sorry, Ellen, I just want to make a statement because I think we've, I'm glad we had this conversation. And by the way, we cannot have this conversation anywhere else because of the open meeting law. So I'm glad we're having, you're a process guy. That's great. I'm a results guy. And so obviously we come about it from different perspectives. You, notice as time goes on, this town, we need stuff. You know, we build roads and bridges and take care of people's problems the best that we can. And there's been a lot of mavericks in this town. I'm considered actually more of a process person than actual. But we're small enough that if we want to do something and we try to do it. But I get it, and it's good that we got a good point counterpoint here. You keep me on the process, you keep me on the process part, and I'll try to nudge you towards results, and we'll work together on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ellen?
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad to hear. But first, I want to say that I know it's not my computer. There's a very strong echo. The sound is going in and out. Other people on the screen as well. I think in general, there's something is wrong with the sound system. So I don't know if you can hear me. A lot of what is being said, especially by people who are on the screen, is not working right. I heard what Steve said just now, though, and what Justin said. I think it's wonderful that Justin said he's a stickler for the rules, but I certainly understand that he wants order to be kept at the meeting. I think we all do. It's really important to be recognized and people don't interrupt. Oh, there's a very big echo.
Sorry.
Is there something you can do about it before I keep going?
If you instruct people to mute their lines if they're not talking, I think that will help.
I only see the green microphone for the select board and no one else. So now is it better? I see a JAM. Oh, they just turned it off. Okay, so maybe now is that better?
We can hear you fine.
Oh, great, because I was hearing all kinds of, that's the right word. Anyway, it makes me nervous to think of people talking about Robert's Rules of Order, because in the Selectmen's Manual, happening again, I hear a lot of echo. In the Selectmen's Manual, these words are printed. When a town has adopted Robert's Rules of Order, many actions of the board, however well intended, have been voided because of some technical non-compliance with Robert's Rules of Order. And then this is the really important piece, I think, right from the Selectmen's Manual, which you can find online for Massachusetts. Towns are advised not to use Robert as their parliamentary guide. And Monterey, as I understand it, has not adopted Robert's Rules of Order at any time as an official guide. And now I see that the Selectmen's Manual is not to do it. So I think people should think very carefully about overuse of what may be outdated or heavy-handed rules. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have order. I totally agree with Justin about order. I think the meeting at the last time was very unusual. I think that it was a crisis, which I'm thrilled to hear worked out by the parties involved. That's tremendously encouraging, I think, for everybody to hear. A sign of maturity, a sign of positivity, a sign of willingness to move forward, a sign of listening to the public, all of us who have spoken about putting aside grudges, putting aside past hostility and anger and working it out, as Steve has said, among ourselves, as we've done so often in this town.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, can we, is there somebody else? Oh, Susan's got her hand up? Okay. Susan? Oh.
I just want to say, I think that if you mute the room mic when callers are speaking, the feedback will stop.
Okay. Just put our technical administrator on that. Is it?
Yes.
Okay, we're trying that. Is that what we're doing now?
We'll try.
We'll try it if somebody else is talking. So does somebody else want to say anything, or otherwise we're gonna move on to another?
Acting with her too.
Got to be a better way. It's got to be a better way. So by the way, Justin, I know you had the vacancies on the Historic District Committee. Can we take care of that?
No, it wasn't on 48 hours. Remember, John Weingold has pointed out several times that he wants the person's name on there who's being appointed, and since I just found out today, it didn't have 48 hours notice.
Well, we did do all of the appointments in the end of June without having any names on it.
I'm just pointing out what another member wanted to
I
have
think-
happen.
I think
You're the process guy.
For every other
So,
single
but
individual
The
appointment.
board didn't agree. I don't know that the board agreed on that.
They did. 'Cause I had
What
to
board? Our board?
I don't know if you were on it yet. It might have been when Don was on it. I was not allowed to put any individual appointments on if it didn't have the name, otherwise he wouldn't vote on it.
Did we put the school committee appointments name on that agenda? I mean, like I said, I'm not a stickler for the rules. I'm thinking about why do we have the rules that we
Listen,
have.
I have no problem doing
The
it.
Historic District Study Committee
Yeah.
sent that, weeks ago.
Okay,
And,
so they,
They
so,
just sent it to me today.
Well, yeah, I know, a quorum of the select board had it weeks ago, and that's my
if you're
my
cool-
fault.
if-
There's other,
If you're cool with that, we can have that discussion.
yeah, the Historic District Committee already made their decision, and so
They made their decision.
so I
appoint.
think it would make sense to appoint him now.
Okay, so they made their decision to appoint,
Donald Barkin.
okay,
Mhm.
and they made the decision. When did they make that decision?
It's a good question.
Okay.
Are we gonna go through what we went through last time?
No, I'm not, I'm just curious, because I want, just for the timing.
We can hold off like we did, for the Conservation Commission's temporary agent. I think that's fine, so, yeah, we can.
Okay, so let's put that
Not
on,
do
the-
that,
so let's
but the
put that
whole-
on the, let's put that approval on the, on
Next agenda.
on the next agenda. Okay, so I don't get in trouble.
The Board of Health, you said was discussing that at their next
Right,
meeting.
so they discussed it at their last meeting. They're reaching out to a few people who've shown interest. And this Monday, they'll be meeting to decide who they're gonna recommend for appointment.
Okay, so we may have that.
You should have on you.
Okay, very good.
Sorry to jump around, but.
No problem.
Is the election warden's resignation, where is that?
I
Is that-
took it
we've
off
already
because it
discussed,
had already,
right?
it was my fault for leaving it on.
Okay, it was already, I wasn't sure if we had others.
No, that was mine. So if we're gonna jump around, you want just the important stuff?
I'd like to get through the real important stuff.
Okay, so, the MedX renewal came in, it starts on January 1st for our retirees. It's a total of 1.22% increase, if you approve that.
That's not a terrible increase,
Right.
1.22.
Yep.
So I make a motion to approve the medics, the new contract for medics, so we'll, with a 1.22 increase. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, I say aye.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. The other one will be the school insurance, I sent you guys the documents, that's the only policy that's available.
Well, unfortunately, if that's the only policy available, we have to maintain the insurance on the building, although I think I would hope that at some point this board starts to discuss the school again. But right now, we have to keep insurance on it. Okay?
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we do accept the policy for the school, building.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, I say aye.
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, the other thing, I know Justin, you talked to Lisa about it, Lisa and Eric are both recommending that you, advise them tonight to close the books and the balance sheet so that free cash can get certified in time for, special town meeting.
I think that's prudent. I mean, is there anything that might raise a red flag?
So there's, her and I, because we couldn't meet last Tuesday, are now meeting on the 19th to go over all the FEMA and the CARES things. We've already kind of preliminary looked at it. We don't think there's gonna be any issues. But if there is, it's gonna be very small and we'll be able to fix it in the next year's, reporting. And this is common to all the towns are having issues
Right.
with this reporting.
No, that I know. Okay, so I make a motion that we close the books.
Second,
I say aye.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, then the other two things is, after the meeting, you can sign these papers. We were awarded $40,000 to help update the town's master plan through the Community Compact Grant, and $35,000 to help with the costs associated with the completion of the town's watershed management plan. And I think Dennis is still on if he wanted to just speak to that real quick, because we're gonna combine it with another grant, that he's gonna have to write something additional. Dennis, are you there?
Too bad we can't combine both grants and buy air packs.
There he is.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Yes, so thank you, Melissa. So basically, the thinking is that that particular, the $35,000 could be used for, as a local match. So the town would not have to match another grant that would be chosen by the select board. So for example, the culvert project at Town Hall, the next phase of that project would be to go to final design and permitting of that project. So some of that money, or all of that $35,000, would be acceptable, I believe, and you can confirm this for me, Melissa. The state has indicated that that money could be used as a local match in another state grant, such as the culvert project.
Yes, we can commingle with the MVP funds and just need to show proof of completion of the project and the final work.
So that's a good benefit to the town, because the town does not have to come up then with the so-called local match money, which in this particular case could be 40% of this next grant application if the select board chooses to move forward and have that submitted.
Great. So I move to accept both grants. You want to do it in one fell swoop?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, I say aye.
yes.
Yes. Great, good news.
So I think we probably can wait on everything else unless someone else has.
I've got no problem with
Just
that.
in the
A
minutes, I think.
lot of things are, any questions on any of the minutes or?
Yeah, a few minor
Oh,
changes.
Yeah, I had a few minor changes.
Okay. Lead on me.
Let me look. All right. 929. I just added in that Adam would prefer to run conduit underground, but if he runs into problems, he will install poles, because I believe.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I said Justin remembers that he still has the water bottle from last year's program, which I remember saying. Which I
Okay.
do- I have. Despite the fact that other family members use it, I do still have it once in a while. A motion was made to continue to use the services of Jeremiah Pollard for these two cases going forward.
Okay. That's fine.
Steve recommends that the job opening be posted immediately. That's just replacing it, to clarify. And Justin questioned how the salary will be advertised for the highway position. Melissa stated that it will be up to the current amount approved by town meeting. Obviously, we can't go above that,
Right.
but depending on experience, we can work within that.
Great, so I move that we accept, the minutes of 9/29/21
Second,
as changed by, I vote yes.
yes.
Oh, do we have to, I don't even. Sorry.
Justin motion to table the request until the board can review executive session matters in an executive session meeting. Steve stated that the two issues, instead of just explain to Justin, the motion failed. And Steve voting no, I think it's all just for clarity. And then this is kind of where the meeting, I don't know if you remember, devolved into yelling, and I changed the wording. And essentially about the finance committee chair, came in. Terry denied that this ever happened. Melissa, I mean, it's all really nasty.
So
I'm open to changing the wording. I mean, I didn't know how to describe it, cause it is something that happened at a meeting, but it also was not
how
very
about this?
deliberative or
Referring
productive.
to, wanting to say Melissa no and Terry disagreed on how things were represented.
Yeah.
And instead, no, I'm
From
trying
here.
to get out of the.
And it would go all the way to here, right? Where does it start?
No, I was gonna start. Sorry, everybody. So I was just gonna start it here, where it
Yeah.
would say Melissa no.
And all the way to here, the crowd then all became unruly.
So I would say Melissa no and Terry disagreed. On the representation of the facts.
Yeah, I think it wasn't related to a motion that was made or deliberation of the select board, so. I think
Okay,
that's sufficient.
so can we just, I was just gonna, everything, just all this stuff.
Yes.
And the crowd became
I
unruly.
agree with that.
Okay, fine. So based on that and with the other changes, I make motion that we approve the minutes of 9/22/21.
Second,
I vote yes.
yes.
Okay.
I think if you wanna stay, you can.
What?
That's all the urgent stuff, I think.
Okay, so if it's okay with you, Justin?
Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
I vote yes.
and yes.
And yes, we are adjourned. If you're in, get cupcakes. If you're home, you gotta make your own.
Oh, really?
Thank you. Good night.
Great.